I like to listen to music. The ukulele is fun for me to play. Rain Brown made $60,000 a year on reality TV when she was 11 years old. Everyone loved her as a star, but her fame came with a bad cost. Everything was run by her father. Cancer almost killed her mother. Rain got bipolar disease and had to go to the hospital several times. As of 2022, the show was over, and she tried to start over. She was caught instead for breaking into the house of her husband's uncle. Guns, gold, and $75,000 in cash were among the things that were stolen. America's sweetheart was now suspected of a crime. This girl named Rain Brown was born on November 23, 2002, in Hoona, Alaska. It was cold and quiet there. It was Merry Christmas, Catherine Raindrop Brown to her full name. She was the seventh child and the youngest. Her family already lived a very different life from the norm. It was dark, cold, and quiet, and there were no lights, heaters, or running water. At times, it got as cold as -30 degrees. Because of that, the family had to sleep close to each other to stay safe. By the time Rain was 2, she had already been through things that most people would never imagine being dangerous. There were bears in the woods where her family picked berries and caught fish by hand. Not a single hospital was close. They couldn't get help when someone in the family got really sick in 2004. Rain got its name from a storm on Christmas Eve. The storm happened while her mom was pregnant, and it seemed to fit with their strange and wild life. Their tiny house on Chichagof Island was only 400 square feet. There wasn't much of a home about it. Rain had to learn which plants were dangerous for her. By getting close to them. When she was only a year old, she almost got poisoned but didn't. There were no toys or friends besides family. There was only snow, quiet, and getting by. Rain had a life that most adults would find scary, even when she was a baby. Her family moved around a lot and never stayed in one place for too long. They would sometimes walk 50 miles through frozen forests just to find a better place to stay. When Rain was only 3 years old, she learned how to catch salmon in cold rivers with sticks she made herself. That water was so cold that it could freeze your skin in minutes. They lost their home to a landslip in 2006. The sun never went down, so they had to sleep outside under blankets. They had to drag their things across the snow since they didn't have cars. They sometimes carried 200 pounds of stuff. Wolves got too close in 2007. Rain saw her family keep them away with fire. She also began making fires in deep snow when she was only 4 years old. That's what she learned. It was nature that taught her. It wasn't just people that Rain watched by 2007, when she was 5 years old. She worked next to them. She cut down trees with a small axe even though it snowed 10 feet outside. She kept going even though her hands were getting numb. The family had around 20 pets. And the rain fed them all. She once found a baby goat buried in 15 feet of snow and got it out by herself. They got their water from frozen streams, and Rain had to carry 5-gallon buckets of water. She broke a bone when she slipped on the ice in 2008. There was no hospital. For days, no one helped her. They didn't really live in their shelters. Some were just blankets over dirt. At 60 miles per hour, the wind would hit them hard. She learned how to skin fish on those cold nights. Make food like an adult. Her sister Snowbird, who was born in 1994 and was like a second mom to Rain, was especially close to her. They all slept in the same small room, which sometimes only had one bed. They learned how to stay alive by remembering things they read in books or saw in nature. Rain knew more than 50 plants that were okay to eat by 2008. She and Snowbird got stuck when their snow fort fell apart during a snow game one time. Their family had to look for them for hours. In 2009, Rain ate a poisonous berry by mistake while learning how to find food. Not a single doctor was around when she got really sick. The family stayed together through it all. They had to. It was a fight every day to stay alive. Something big changed in 2009. The Brown family had to leave their camp on Chichagof Island because of a strong storm. To Juneau. It was the first time Rain had seen real roads or power. She was 7 years old and shocked. She hid from people she didn't know because she was more scared of cars and lights than wild animals. It wasn't just for comfort that they moved. Their mother, Ami, was sick and needed to be closer to a hospital. It could take 12 hours on rough water to get to the nearest doctor by boat. It was loud and small in their new Juneau flat. Rain couldn't sleep because of the sounds of the city. It was hard for her to meet people at small events. Having her dad, Billy, in trouble with the law in 2010 made things even more stressed. Rain looked up to her dad all the time. Rain thought that Billy was strong and could not be broken because he was the boss of their family. She began going on real shooting trips with him when she was 8 years old, in 2010. She learned how to hold shotguns and weapons with care. And how to find big cats like bears and moose. Some people thought it was wrong to let a kid do that, but Rain just saw it as life. During those hard times, her dad gave her a guitar, which became very important to her. The family got stuck for days on a shooting trip in 2011. Rain would always admire him, even though it was risky. She still thought a lot about him even after he died in February 2021. Her mom, Ami, made sure Rain wasn't just learning how to stay alive. By 2007, she was teaching Rain at home with the Bible and old books. Rain could sew her own clothes out of animal skins by the time she was 7 years old. She used simple tools to make coats and trousers out of bear skins. She had already learnt 50 songs by heart by 2009. The family didn't have any cash to buy school stuff. So everything had to come from the outdoors or books that were given away. Even more so after Ami got cancer in 2017, those lessons became more about being strong. After Billy died in 2021, had a rough time, but the skills her mother taught her helped her get through it. Rain's family didn't have much money left by 2011. They had to get on a boat called the Integrity, which Billy paid $20,000 for. It was cold and small, but the boat could float. Rain learned how to steer it through rough water. In 2012, a storm almost flipped it over while they were sleeping. They could only eat fish and nuts. She even drove the boat after many years. But back then, it was just another fight. They were kicked out of homes for not paying rent before they were on TV. Then all of a sudden, in 2017, they were living in a mansion in Beverly Hills while Ami was getting care for her cancer. It changed so quickly that Rain didn't know what to do. Her sadness got worse. Rain didn't have many friends. Aside from the TV show, she didn't see many other people before it started in 2014. But she loved stories. She wrote and drew stories and pictures about her family, animals, the forest, and herself. She had written more than 200 pages by 2013. What she loved most were Nancy Drew books. By the time she was 10, she had read 30 of them. That helped her get away from being alone and quiet. The house they lived in burned down in 2013. Rain used her notebooks to work through her pain by writing everything down. In the same year, something strange took place. A small group of bush pilots and hunters told the Discovery Channel about the Brown family. It was 11 o'clock when they got there. The people who made the show first just wanted to see how they lived. They filmed the family making shelters and hunting in secret. The Browns had no idea that cameras were there. Later, some people in the area said the family wasn't as alone as they said, but the directors didn't care. They really liked how Rain looked in the picture. She was wild and sweet. And full of life. The people who make TV shows thought she would be great for it. The movie was shot in January 2014. She was only 11 years old when she was in the first test shows. She showed off how well she could stay alive and helped build houses. But not everything was true. Rain didn't know that some scenes, like the bear incident, weren't real because they were staged. The people who make films gave her more lines because her eyes lit up on screen. The family slept in hotels behind the scenes. Which made people wonder how real the show really was. But Rain made the show heartfelt. 1.8 million people watched the first show when it came out on May 6, 2014. She became well known very quickly. After that, the Browns made a deal with Discovery in March 2014. At the time she signed the papers, Rain was only 11 years old. For her first job, she got paid between $8,000 and $15,000 per show. She could now make more than $60,000 a year. Her family used to have trouble getting food, but now they had plenty. Trouble came with money, though. People began to inquire about Billy's past and learnt that he had been jailed in the 1980s. They had to act out some scenes as well, which made it hard to tell the difference between real life and show life. In the spring of 2014, Rain had to learn how to deal with the media. It took 2 weeks to teach her how to smile, talk in interviews, and tell stories about her family again and again. She worked out every day for 8 hours. She cried sometimes because she missed her family. Even when they did use hotels and power, she had to act like they never did. She kept going, though. There was no stopping her by the end of April. She was no longer just a child who lived in the woods. She became the star of a show that several million people watched. It was May 2014 when Rain Brown first showed up on TV. She was only 11 years old and the youngest star of Alaskan Bush People. Her energy and big smile made people fall in love with her right away. She was making cabins, pulling heavy logs and learning how to lead dogs through the snow on screen. She was known as Bush Barbie by some. She had 15,000 online friends by the end of the year. But back then, no one knew, wasn't telling her family a big secret. They were no longer living in Alaska, but her dad, Billy, took almost $21,000 in oil money from there. The state put charges against him in June 2014. Court papers showed that Rain's family had lied about where they lived and faked papers while she laughed and played in front of the cameras. After the fact, some team members said the family stayed in hotels. Even though it looked like they lived in the middle of nowhere on the show. In 2015, Rain was 12 years old and already leading rides on the show. In one show, she did everything by herself, finding food and animals to catch. She began getting fan letters, more than 2,000 of them, and her number of friends rose to 55,000. But things at home kept getting worse. They were both found guilty and given fines in January of that year. For a while, they had to move to Hawaii. People began to follow them, and Rain had to deal with people getting too close to their house. But she smiled and said, "There's adventure out there." Even though things were tough behind the scenes that year, the show faked a bear attack, which the team later admitted was all fake. Rain made a lot of progress that summer. She began doing voiceovers for the show's ads in July 2015. People all over the United States could hear her even though she was only 12 years old. A few of the lines she added herself, like "sticks together," became famous sayings. 70,000 people started following her, and some of them started making pictures of her. But her dad was in court again while she was recording those happy lines. He had to do community work in October 2015. It rained for a while. She said it was scary in a tweet that she later took down. At the same time, she kept shooting scenes, and it would take her up to 15 tries to get one right. There were t-shirts with her face on them, and by the end of the year, more than 5,000 had been sold. In 2016, Rain was 13 years old and was shooting outside in the cold. In one show, she made snow shelters and tried to stay alive during a fake blizzard. She talked about how close she was to getting frostbite afterward. Her hands went numb. Even though it was cold, she learned how to shoot an arrow and hit targets 50 yards away. But things got even worse in January when her dad and brother were sent to jail for 30 days. While they were gone, she had to film her parts by herself. She got to go to the Alaska Fan Expo that same year. 5,000 people showed up. She signed more than 1,000 things. And used props to show how she trained dogs. The demo movie went viral and got 200,000 views. But behind all the cheering, the family was about to be kicked out of their Browntown home because they broke the rules on their permit. It turned out that Amy, her mom, had cancer, which she had just started struggling with. Rain was in more than 20 shows in 2017 and 2018. She was 15 years old now. And being more involved in the family. In that year, she found out her mom had stage 4 lung cancer. Rain almost stopped the show, but she helped the family move to Washington state. 4.5 million people watched a special episode that showed this move, which was the most ever. She was becoming the show's emotional center, but she was having a hard time behind closed doors. She later said that she was having nervousness, family fights, and a strong feeling of being alone. It's really hard. Was getting stronger. 2018, Rain played a real person. She cried out loud in scenes about her mom's battle with cancer. She said she was afraid she would lose both of her parents. She was up for a Teen Choice Award because she was honest, but that year was also dark. She passed out during filming because she was so tired, and the show showed that they owed $500,000 in hospital bills. She started having problems with sadness. Attacks of fear. Some fans started to question Rain's well-being after seeing the show's changes. Rain made her own behind-the-scenes short film for Discovery's website in 2019. She was only 16. Fans were shocked by Rain's wilderness diary. It showed fights in the family, money issues, and the real story behind their new home. The movie got 1.2 million views in its first week, but she was having another hard time at the same time. The secret health problems her father was having were making her feel bad. She tried to be strong, but everything was too much for her. In the same year, Season 10 showed Rain going on her own dangerous adventures. In one show, she went into deep, empty mines without any safety gear. People really liked it. Discovery even thought about making her own show. Cost cut stopped them, though. She looked brave on the outside. But she was having such bad panic attacks on the inside that one day, she needed help from a doctor. Over 300,000 people now follow her, and her fans have raised $50,000 for wilderness causes in her honor. Everything changed in 2020 and 2021 because of COVID. The movie stopped. Some of the crew got sick. The family had to remain at their ranch. She started making vlogs about her daily life. More people watched, but her life was getting harder. She was still teaching and helping her mom get better, and her own mental health was getting worse. She was hospitalized for 2 weeks in November 2020 and was told she had bipolar illness. But she didn't hide it, instead, she used it to make herself stronger. Pushed for the show to include mental health. These honest talks were shown in 2021 episodes. Viewers felt a strong connection. Rain did even more in 2021. At age 18, she began to act like a producer by offering ideas for new episodes. The ratings had dropped by 20%. Bear had a seizure on the show, which made Rain want to talk about her own mental health journey. She talked about being unstable and her 10-day stay in the hospital in one episode. It helped get 25% more views. She got in trouble with the police that same year. She got caught with booze and had to pay a $500 fine. She called it a wake-up call on Instagram. A YouTube account was also made by her. That quickly got 50,000 members. The hardest thing about 2021 was when her dad died. Bill Brown had a seizure and died on February 7, 2021. She said it made her feel like a part of her had died too. She led the tributes on the show and started seeing a therapist. Rain became even more open after her father died. In March, she talked about having thoughts of killing herself in a live video. More than 100,000 people watched. Scores went up 30%. So that people could understand her pain. She started working with mental health groups and raised $10,000. After her brothers moved out, she had to take care of 200 acres of land by herself. Things got worse in 2022. For fraud with her father's fortune, she got a $2,000 fine. She binged again that same year and went to rehab for 3 weeks. In her 2025 interview, she shocked everyone by saying that her father's control had made her mental health worse. Still, she kept going even when fans began to doubt the truth of the show. Rain's time on the show came to an end on December 18, 2022, when she narrated the last episode. 20 million people had watched her grow up over the course of 140 shows. But she had another big bipolar episode in January 2022. No films could be made for a month, and it cost $500,000 to fix. She had to go through treatment with electric shocks. When she talked about her father in the last scene, her voice broke. She said that for 6 months after he died, she had panic attacks every day. But that wasn't the end of her story. She began making a documentary about mental health, and in 2023, it was nominated for an Emmy. Then, in 2024, she was caught for driving while drunk, according to court records. She did work around the house for 30 days. She finally told the truth when she said that almost half of the scenes in the woods are ones that people love. Had been shot in small rooms. Fans were upset, but her boldness made them love her again. Rain Brown went from being a little girl playing in the snow to a strong woman who never gave up. Once Alaskan Bush People was over in 2022, Rain Brown tried something different. She began teaching survival skills on YouTube when she was only 19. The skills came from the things her family did when they lived in the wild. We saw her first film in June 2022. It was about making shelters out of tree bark. And use simple tools to clean dirty water. It made people think of a video of her from 2016 that had over 2 million views. This time, though, only about 15,000 people watched in the first month. Behind the scenes, she was still sad about her dad Billy's death in 2021 from a seizure. Her posts on the internet got darker. In one from August 2022, she wrote that she was lost in her own thoughts. She slowly stopped putting movies on YouTube. By the end of 2022, she had chosen treatment over being famous. Fans who thought she would make content full-time were shocked. The next surprise was even bigger. Rains married a guy named Josiah Lorton in secret on April 15, 2023. There were only 5 people at the small event in Washington, D.C. Early that year, she met Josiah at a diner where he worked in the kitchen and she worked as a server. They quickly fell in love. And got married not long after. That, it almost disappeared from the web. She only put up 3 paid videos all year and made around $5,000 from health brands. The drama continued. Josiah's ex-girlfriend said that Rain stole him in public. Over 10,000 mean comments were posted on her pages in just 1 week. In December 2023, she told everyone about the relationship, but her brothers didn't come to the wedding. The long silence made people wonder if there was a fight in the family over Billy's $6 million will. A lot of people thought it looked like Rain had gone from being cool to stormy. Her Instagram page began to change in 2024. No longer was it about nature or staying alive. It turned into a spot where she could talk freely about her mental health. In March, she wrote on her blog that she had been dealing with crippling worry since she was 15. Over 500,000 people saw that post and left 20,000 comments, many of which were about their own pain. She also began working with mental health brands to promote items such as CBD oils and guided notebooks. By the middle of the year, those deals had brought her about $50,000. But then there was another surprise. Someone on TikTok said that her sister-in-law Rain had stolen her name in March 2024. There were real claims after the video got 1 million views. Even though there was a lot going on, Rain gave an important interview on April 10 in which she talked about feeling suicidal after the show finished in 2022. People who only knew her as the tough girl from the woods were shocked by how honest she was. But by October, she was posting less often again. She said in a cut scene that she had been pretending to be strong the whole time. Fans couldn't say anything. Rain's problems didn't start when she was an adult. In June 2017, when Ami was only 15, she was told that her mother had stage 3 lung cancer and had a 3% chance of living. So Ami could get care, the family had to leave the wilds of Alaska and move to California. Her life was almost lost to the treatment and radiation. Ami lost 89 pounds. The doctors thought she might not make it at times. During long hospital stays, Rain tried to stay strong by her mother's side. It was all shown on TV. Ami finally got better in January 2018, but her family had over $500,000 in hospital bills that they couldn't pay. They almost lost everything. Rain said that's when her sadness started. There were times when she was afraid she would lose her mom. Even though she had to do her part on the show. People remembered how weak and thin Ami looked on screen and how broken Rain looked as she held back tears. But what happened on February 7, 2021, hurt Rain more than anything else. That's the day her dad Billy died. He had a seizure after having a heart attack when he was 68 years old. It rained on him. She was only 18. Since 2018, Billy had been having seizures. Some were even caught on video. But he couldn't be saved this time. In March 2021, wrote on Instagram that seeing her dad like that broke her heart. She said a part of her also died. At 5,000 feet in the Washington Mountains, where the funeral was filmed, Rain's pain could not be hidden. Bear Brown later said that their dad had heart problems for a long time. The show lost its heart when it lost him. After that, it didn't rain for 4 years. In 2025, she finally spoke up. She talked about how her dad's impact still affected her and made her feel pushed and controlled. No one kept Rain's sadness a secret. While Billy was still alive, she wrote more about her problems on Instagram. Early in 2021, she told her friends that she was broken. She was only 18 years old, but she already said she didn't want to live. She told everyone again in 2025 that she had been dealing with severe sadness the whole time. Even more painful things were shown in her posts from that year. She was also in a lot of pain all the time. Her last video was on YouTube in March 2025, after being quiet for months. She told everyone that she had nerve damage. It was like a hot vice that was all over her body. She said it was because she grew up in the wild and got hurt, fell, and maybe even ate poisonous plants. Even after I healed, the pain didn't go away. They told her that her brain was in a pain loop, which is a term for neuro. 7 to 8% of people have that, and it's hard to treat. A big discovery in 2025 showed that she had a rare genetic disorder that caused her to be in pain all the time. Seeing that gave me hope for healing. Rain said she still felt alone, though. Therapy made things better, but it wasn't enough. In April 2025, everything went off, just when it looked like things couldn't get any worse. It was April 11th when Rain and Josiah were caught breaking into a house in Washington. Josiah's uncle owned the house. People said they stole $75,000 in cash, $8,000 in gold coins, 2 guns worth more than $3,000, and even wine and champagne worth $8,000. About $170,000 worth of items were taken. The break-in took place on March 27. A generator broke and windows were broken. The loss to property was about $5,000. The uncle of Josiah told the cops that he had shown the boy where the valuables were when things were tough for him. They were let out of jail without bail on April 14, but the damage had already been done. Fans who used to watch her grow up in the woods now saw her as a witness to a terrible crime. Court records made things worse. He talked about how Rain and Josiah broke antiques and searched the house with a pry bar. Police went to their house and found guns and wine bottles that had been stolen. On April 28, they both said they were not guilty over Zoom. There was a plea deal. Rain could get 24 months in prison and pay for the damage if she admitted to second-degree theft. People who saw her on TV as a little girl were shocked by the news. She was now being charged with a felony and had a bad image. Then something strange happened. Rain wrote on Instagram on April 19, 2025, that the man they robbed used to be her boss. She said he took $43,000 from her. And even hurt her. The woman who broke in said it wasn't out of greed but to get back what was hers. She used the Bible to warn her fans not to believe false things. It was Easter Sunday, and the post was full of anger, hurt, and uncertainty. People were hurt. Was she guilty or innocent? In August 2024, before the break-in, more shocking claims came out. Noah, Rain's brother, tried to get a court order to keep her away. He said she used drugs like cocaine and meth. He was drinking too much and making threats with guns. It was said that she had pistols, rifles, and shotguns. His kids were only 2 and 5 years old at the time, and he was scared for them. The court turned down the request for technical reasons, but Noah didn't give up. He later linked Rain to threats of violence. It was in June 2025, and she fought back in an angry video. She denied everything and said Noah was scared of what she knew about him. It got even worse in May, when something else came out. Said Rain had stopped her mother Ami from taking medicines that could have saved her life. Pills were hidden in a baby bag. Some people also said that Rain and Josiah gave Ami drugs and drink. Noah called the child welfare line. He said Ami had pneumonia in February and was still sick and couldn't take care of herself at their house. The police couldn't get to her. Rain said it wasn't true. In another video, she said Noah lied to hurt her, which broke her fans' hearts. The family from the wild that used to be strong now looked like it was totally broken up.